By way of introduction, I just want to give you a couple of quotes. The first step towards change is awareness, and the second step is acceptance. I think we're all aware of why we're here and the tragedy that happened. We're all aware that things do need to change, and we've got to accept that change. And today is about this. One's destination is never a place, but rather a new way of looking at things. Today is all about looking forward. I've asked all the presenters to look forward, and some of the visions they're going to present today might not happen. We don't know where the end destination is, but we don't need to know where the destination is. We just need to know what good practice looks like.
So very briefly, the history. So the Grenfell fire was on the 14th of June, and it killed 72 people. The interim report was released in December 2017, and the final report was published in May the 17th, 2018. And that really does identify the problems which hopefully we can seek to remedy as we go forward. The key issues she identified really were ignorance. She was really kind to the fire safety industry, by the way. Ignorance, regulations and guidance, she said, are not always read by those who need to read it. She also said that when they do, the guidance is often misunderstood and misinterpreted. And I think if any of you follow the sorts of conversations around fire safety, various sort of days like this, LinkedIn conversations and things like that, you'll see there is a massive difference in opinion on many fire safety activities. Unlike any other risk that's out there, fire safety really is argued. Be under no illusion that without this fire, we wouldn't be here talking the way we are. We wouldn't have the sort of buy-in that we've got, and we wouldn't have so much interest in fire safety. Many of us who've been working in the sector for 17 years now, believe it or not, I did start when I was 6. It's really difficult because a lot of the things that have happened within strategic fire risk management have been a massive change because of Grenfell Tower. And obviously we've had Lakanal House before, a little bit of a warning shot over the bow, so to speak, and it really didn't do enough for the sector, and the sector really didn't grab hold of that fire in the way it did and deliver change like it should have done. And I think, as sad as it is, I think Grenfell Tower will be the legacy really for those that died in the change that we will see within the sector, and in particular fire safety. So was it an isolated incident? And many say that it is. I've shown this slide many a time now. Top left-hand corner is Grenfell Tower. We've got fires in China, Dubai, Baku in Azerbaijan, another fire in Dubai, Moscow. And if you follow the news around fire safety like I do, these things are happening every day all over the world. ACM is a massive problem, and it's a global problem as well. So hopefully England and Wales, although we talk about Scotland and Ireland, they've got different regulatory environments than we have, I'm hoping that we can lead the way, and in particular the way we're modifying our buildings is really showing what can be done. So accountability, competence and traceability, and that's the focus for ensuring housing is delivered safely. And to be fair, all sectors should be doing it in exactly the same way. It's now time to act and start preparing for a more robust fire safety landscape. It is happening now, and it will change the way that we work.
I come from a supposed regulatory background, so I deal with all contractors, all developers, all builders, and I think Dame Judith has got it absolutely bang on. I think the industry is ignorant and is indifferent. Maybe people in this room aren't, and so please don't take offence at what I'm going to have to say this morning, but I'm afraid that is a fact. And I think that what she uncovered as part of her review was all of those things. Standards aren't the outcome of building control. They're the input of all professionals dedicated to protecting the golden thread. From the first building concept through all the stages of design, procurement and construction until final handover for maintenance and management, the golden thread of fire safety has to be understood and protected. It can't be value engineered away. It can't be compromised by untrained tradespeople. Site managers can't substitute products with lower specifications because of supply delays and budget constraints. That's what happens. Initially, Dame Judith mapped the existing system for quality and compliance and found it so complicated it couldn't fit onto a sheet of A3, and nobody could agree a route through that would actually guarantee the right or safe outcome. In many ways, I'm really saddened looking back at my career and seeing that the lives of LABC has become focused on the survival of our service. We were stuck trying to retain business and fight off competition. Many of my colleagues had sleepless nights trying to balance income against the risks of reduced inspections and enforcement activities. Dame Judith soon understood that competition compromises standards and regulatory functions. So one of her fundamental recommendations became, you can't choose your regulator. Why on earth did we ever think it was a good idea in the first place? She also, perhaps to the annoyance of the Select Committee, who just wanted prescriptive public clarity on banning of combustible materials, stuck to her view that there had to be a complete new system, not just more layering of additional rules. So she looked at a fundamental review of our system, not just sorting out that one issue that we clearly had, that the world had, to be fair. At LABC, we absolutely supported her view. The old system hasn't been working for years, and any organisation commissioning construction could very easily find a route to the least compliance at the least cost. There'll need to be other legislative changes, and the documentation of the new system needs to be created. Sanctions and penalties for failures have yet to be reviewed. Importantly, and I think officials are only just realising what happens in real life, a shared digital system will need to be created between regulators to document the golden thread. Ideally, duty holders would be included in this system, and perhaps others also who live and work in these buildings. There's no time to lose, so we need to, in a northern way, get off our backsides and do something. Stop waiting to be told.
The fire safety order, it's not fit for residential. What the fire service or NFCC will not accept that there is a two-tier system of safety. You cannot have, I live in a 10-storey block of flats, so I get this fantastic gold-plated system where I'm getting checked, but the 9-storey building next to me, no one really cares about that, so they can do what we're doing now. That cannot be acceptable, and NFCC will fight that. The full review will come, which is good, from the ADB, and it's our chance to get a better system, and not just what we want, how long, how big and all that, but how to scope that document, how to ensure competent people will use it, and there isn't these ways of, well, if it doesn't say I can't do it, that means I can do it. And we need to change that culture that Dame Judith talked about, and we'll do that. There's got to be stronger enforcement. People will die in fires. There's no doubt about that. That will happen. What we cannot accept is multiple fatalities. That is unacceptable, and we have to stop that. But we have to get it right, because it will just be another, we won't get this opportunity again. Though I see a few faces in the room I know who've been talking about this for a long time, but the door was always shut. But now the door is wide open. In fact, it's so wide open, it's a bit ridiculous because they're listening to everyone. So we've gone from this closed door where we had some really good ideas and we're saying, you need to do this. Sorry, not interested. Fire safety's dead. We're not interested in that. The world's great. Fire deaths are going down. Fires are going down. There ain't a problem anymore. Go away, Mr. Fire Service. Oh, no, we've had a tragedy. Bloody hell. Oh, quick, open the door. But now it's so wide open. Let's have this. Let's have that. And they don't know what's right from wrong. And it's us as professionals to try and advise them. We need to look at what we've got, look at how we can improve it to make everyone safe. Then we'll invent this new regulatory framework that makes the higher risk better and the process going forward. Because all we can do is say we made it better.
Nick, do you think that the term sprinkler has become synonymous with automatic fire suppression? Because there are other methods of suppression which also have their place, but there's not a great awareness. So when we talk about fire suppression, we tend to just defer to the word sprinkler,
Yeah.
when alone it's not a panacea, there are other
Yeah,
alternative technologies.
I think you're right. I think the issue is that sprinklers have been around hundreds of years, and when we talk sprinklers, I think in the industry we're thinking sprinklers and there are other versions available. We are starting, I'm hoping, to educate people to use AWSS because that gives the broad range of types of automatic water suppression systems that are out there. Unfortunately, again, we kind of argue about standards and all that kind of stuff. You know, to me, something's better than nothing in a lot of cases, but we will get there. We will get there. The sprinkler industry, the water mist industry need to kind of work together. One of the bad things around our industry, the fire industry, is we argue amongst ourselves and we don't look professional. The passive against the active, the sprinklers against the water mist. We should all come from the same things. We're about public safety. That's what we want, and work more together. But I think we need everyone to take ownership. It shouldn't solely rely on the enforcer to be there. What the enforcer's role is to be the kind of stick that says, if I do catch you, the punishment is going to fit. You wouldn't turn up and buy a brand new car and go, yeah, sorry about that bald tyre and that wing mirror's hanging off, but just crack on driving with it and we'll come back later and, fix it at another time, But we accept it in a building that's going to house people that we're meant to be protecting. And this whole thing has got to change. It's become an industry where we just accept it.
So fire risk assessment, I would consider this in the fire safety industry to be the most widely acknowledged competency-driven issue. There's no question about it. The race for the bottom around fire risk assessment, much like Lorna described about LABC and approved inspectors getting to the lowest common possible denominator, the lowest number of inspections. In fire risk assessments, we've seen the same thing. How quickly can someone do a fire risk assessment? How little time can they be on site? How quickly can they write those risk assessments up to deliver fire risk assessments with a competent practitioner for less than £100? I mean, business-wise, it doesn't make sense, but yet you can still buy them. Inside Housing did a Freedom of Information Act request to 128 councils, and this was in the last 2 months, it was reported. Out of 128 councils who answered around fire risk assessment competency and who they engaged, only 26 used registered fire risk assessors to undertake fire risk assessments of their stock. And we're talking 18 months after Grenfell Tower happened. 56 of them didn't know, which is astonishing, isn't it? You don't know who's doing your fire risk assessments. Don't know whether the organisation is certificated. Don't know if the individual is on a register. We just don't know. 46 of them used a mixture. Thought maybe half of them needed to be competent, the other half, it doesn't matter. A classic example of competence around fire risk assessments is if you've driven a red lorry for 20 years squirting water at things, it doesn't make you a competent fire risk assessor. And many organisations still perceive it to be a case that does make you competent. 23 organisations admitted, well, I say admitted, they were legally obliged to answer the question properly. 23 didn't use registered fire risk assessors to undertake fire risk assessments in a portfolio pretty much identical to those of you that are in the room and those that you work with, which is astonishing because we've had competency criteria since 2011 in fire risk assessments. So when the Hackett report says we need to have a fire risk assessment competency criteria, we've had one for 8 years. The problem is the responsible person in many cases simply don't know it exists or they don't care. There's no other way around it. Everyone knows that you've got to be third-party certificated if you want to deliver a decent product. But it's not a requirement. Any of you can set up a fire risk assessment firm tomorrow. You don't need to have any legal licence to do that. You don't even need to legally demonstrate competence. It doesn't say in the fire safety law you need to be competent to do a fire risk assessor. It's only inferred in documents like PAS 79 that you should be. It's up to the responsible person to ensure that they're only employing registered fire risk assessors or organisations. So for those in senior management, understanding legal obligations placed upon them, accountability and liability associated with their day-to-day activity. Understanding of competency requirements across the range of activities undertaken and an appreciation for their cost. This stuff doesn't come cheap, unfortunately, which is probably why we're in the situation we're in. Understanding the process of cost to risk analysis and understanding the responsibility placed on their staff in roles which aren't necessarily fire safety specific. And lastly, understanding legacy issues and responsibility around those legacy issues, which is critical for Tier 1 contractors and obviously the responsible person themselves.
We started off with one which was just, would I be happy with my mum living in this block, specifically on the top floor? And then the second one is, you can't unsee what you've already seen. And that goes to this business of, in part of our inspections, taking panels off on our high-rise and gasping at the horrors that we see behind it. But once we've seen it, I can't just put the panel back and go, well, the panel's all right, so let's just forget the rest. So we have been doing an inspection of all our buildings over 6 stories high. We prioritised it, so we did over 10 and then the 6 to 10, prioritised it still further into those that were clad and those that were unclad. We are just now getting to the end of that, so I've got approximately just under 120 tall buildings. By the end of March, by the end of this financial year, we'll have done an FRA 4 of every single one of those. What we've come up with at Hyde is we've got 3 sort of families of layers of protection. The first one is reducing the risk of a fire occurring in the first place. The second one is reducing the risk of it spreading if it does occur. And then the third one is, if the stay put policy becomes unviable, then what we want is measures that will ensure people can exit the building safely and speedily. So basically what has worked for us, and I just stress again, we're on a journey. We don't always get it right. We have to sort of change course from time to time, but that is fine because we're doing something. So we have got this dedicated fire safety team. This is their day job. They sit in a particular office and it's all branded up. Everybody knows that this is the fire safety team. They've got a fabulous board where they stick up all sorts of data, so anybody in the office can go and have a look and see what they're up to. This very methodical programme of audit and inspection, I think, is really important. It's not just the technical issue, it's not just a building issue. This is about people. Within a building, there is the fabric of the building, but there are the people living in that, and we cannot ignore the way in which people live and the way in which that therefore raises some of our risks. But at the end of the day, the objective is people being safe in our buildings and feeling safe in our buildings. That's the end game for us. So we've come quite a way, but there's a long, long way to go.
So the government, as we know, conducted fire safety tests on GRP composite doors last year in 2018. Following the test, there were 5 initial failures of composite doors, and immediately a letter was issued to heads of building control stating that building control bodies should check that test evidence is presented of exposure for both sides of the door in order to demonstrate compliance with the requirements of approved document B. Pretty clear, with referencing back to ADB. However, further guidance note 17 was put out to qualify that within the remit of BS 476-22 and EN 1634-1, provision is made for the testing of one side for timber and metal door sets. It's not a get out of jail clause per se, it was just clarification on that initial note. However, composite doors should still be tested from both sides as previous fire guidance. So through the presentation, no bones by saying we invest lots of money in research and development. So of course, the overarching theme behind here is around door sets, but the theme focuses across all building products, to be honest, when we're referring to ACT. So how a door set is designed is based on its function and the test standards to verify its performance. And that's crucial that you work closely with a manufacturer to make sure you have the correct product for your building, your property. And it's the correct building to function in that building, i.e. should it be an FD30, an FD60, some sort of compartmentation door, working closely with the door set manufacturer. They know their products. They will understand the product you require. later on, and we might as well mention it now, we'll be talking about the golden thread. And that golden thread starts from the door set manufacturer, because they will understand the product you require. Somebody asked the other day, what do I do if I've got a gap of 3 mil? Can I just try and squeeze in some foam in that little gap, or should I use hardwood packer? It's specified, it's laid down for you in guidance. And if you don't understand our guidance, if it isn't simple enough, there is a default BS 8214, which is your default fallback. So there is no, I didn't know what to do, I wasn't sure. There is guidance out there and it already exists. All we've done is taken that guidance and taken it to another level.
Passive fire protection, I get the impression you guys all know about it, but just to be absolutely certain, it's built-in measures that protect the structure of the building and subdivide it into areas to limit the spread of fire and smoke. And there's 2 basic types of structural fire protection, to make sure a building doesn't fall down, and compartmentation. But what you're probably more familiar with and more worried about is compartmentation, which we know is to subdivide the buildings into areas of manageable risk, to provide an adequate means of escape, fire separation between the building you're in and the adjacent one, and the last one that people forget, as Nick Coombs says, access and protection for firefighters. That's very important. What does passive fire protection look like? Well, fire doors, I'm not going to explain all those. There's fire stopping there, where you've got cables and services and pipes going through walls and floors, fire-resisting ducts going through compartments, a fire damper. And this is one thing you're going to see more of. You're seeing it more in high-end, which are fire curtains. It's not smoke curtains, they're fire curtains. They're kind of instant compartmentation. If the alarm goes off, if the power fails, this curtain will lower from the ceiling and it provides the instant compartmentation. So look at the situation, how we have it at the moment with our cowboys. With no certification, we have no barrier to entry, I mentioned that. Products installed by untrained staff, so you haven't got your competence. Use of unproven products or systems, wrong or missing components, so you haven't got the traceability that you need to link back. No certificate of completion and no independent inspection of works. So you lose your accountability. So you see, if you don't have certification, you don't have that. But with this certification, only staff whose competence has been evaluated are used. So you get your competence there. Only third-party certificated products are used. There's mix and matches of products. The record of jobs must prove the right products are used. So you get your traceability of products. Because if you make a third-party certificated product, they're all labelled. Just like you have a recall on a car, you can have a recall on your fire door. And finally, a certificate of completion issued by the certification body and random inspection on site. And that gives you your accountability. So that's why we support third-party certification. It's been the position of the ASFP for about 20 years, and we always recommend to use third-party certificated contractors installing third-party certificated products.
Dame Judith's final report, Building a Safer Future, published in May 2018, identified serious failings for the provision and passing on of key documentation. Quotes from the report, which we see in front of us: the Hackett Review heard almost unanimous concern surrounding the ineffective creation, maintenance and handover of building and fire safety information. As alluded to in a number of the presentations this morning, the review identified a clear need for a golden thread of information for all high-risk buildings, a distinct series of key information originating during the design stage, augmented and adhered to throughout all construction stages and formally handed over on completion of the project. Key information that follows the building through its lifetime, regardless of building ownership or development. The focus going forward as an industry must be on improved collaboration, beginning at the design stage. This must be maintained through every stage of the construction process, starting from the design, then to the procurement of products, the pre-build, the various construction phases, all the way up to completion and beyond. If your fire safety support starts with a pre-occupancy fire risk assessment at the end of your project, then you've already left it too late, far too late. The whole project should be augmented with the use of a dedicated project fire safety inspector. The fire safety inspector should have a broad range of understanding based in fire consultancy, but being able to draw in fire engineering expertise when needed and call on specialist inspectors for specific elements of the build. This fire safety inspector should be involved from the start and have an understanding of the original fire strategy, continually cross-referencing back to it, ensuring any alterations in the build do not detract from it. The fire safety inspector can inspect your compartmentation before the final surfaces go on. They can examine the workmanship as it's being done and ensure that the Regulation 38 documentation is advised in a timely fashion, with clear dates being set for the contractors so that it can be reviewed. They can maintain a relationship with your designers, the clerk of works and the client throughout the construction stages. So intrusive surveys, fire strategies and clear, comprehensive information will still be required for buildings in order to build an accurate record as evidence to support the safety case. Intrusive surveys, I'm talking about Type 4 fire risk assessments. As specifically noted within Dame Judith Hackett's final report, a Type 4 fire risk assessment, it covers all the issues within a conventional Type 1 visual fire risk assessment, but goes beyond that. It considers the viability of the stay-put strategy. It's the only real way to examine the compartmentation of your building. It's required less frequently. It's about quality, not quantity. There's no point us having a fire risk assessment every year if it's not looking at the right things. It will consider the building holistically, both the communals and the dwellings. How do we give a fire risk assessment to the building when we've only looked in the corridors and the stairwells, which makes up about 10 or 15% of the building? We must be going into the dwellings. Similarly, the fire strategy, the day of saying we don't have a fire strategy for this building, they've got to be gone. A fire strategy is a line in the sand detailing the design standards and specifications of the fire safety elements of the building. These will include compartmentation, means of escape, ventilation, and fire service access requirements. As long as this documentation is available during the life of the building, the way the different elements were designed and built is clear, and any works that may affect them can be reviewed against this strategy. In summary, your building biography, it should be instigated right from the start of the design process. It should be maintained throughout all stages of any construction project. It should include original design intentions and the design fire strategy, and it should be updated with quality review and quality FRA exercises. It should be recorded in appropriate BIM format to allow access to the correct people. But it must be retrospective. It must look at the history of the building. It must be forward-looking.
This is about getting it right, making sure we're working with the best supply chain partners we can. Again, going back to that robust solution that ensures that ultimate assurance. Landlords must budget accordingly to ensure the quality of fire safety works provide them with total assurance. Again, it's about looking at the whole life of a project, not just the initial build, making sure the full thought has gone into the understanding of the life of the asset, which takes us to the traditional paradigm of quality, cost and speed. Back in the old world, it was always a matter, of course, that you go to site as quickly as possible, you complete the job as quickly as possible, and no surprise, for as little amount as possible, little amount as money as possible. Quality, however, was a backseat driver, never often enough taking the lead within that paradigm. Things have got to change. The starting point of the new Act era must begin with quality outweighing cost as a key driver when procuring works. And this is change, giving us the accountability, competence and traceability, the Act. Firstly, 14 months ago, we invested in making sure we understood properly what the actual problems were within the industry, what we needed to do as a contractor to make the change, to understand how we could actually work with our clients to give a better service. We commissioned a report to research and consult with fire industry to understand how we can improve our offer to housing fire safety. We came up with a number of recommendations, and I'm pleased to say, and proud to say, that we've actually adopted those and taken them as a group as our way forward. It starts with the relationship and partnerships we've got with Frankham's. A bit of PR now for Frankham's. But it was early on within our investigations that we identified that Frankham's were the leading probably within the UK on their understanding and shape of fire safety. For us, we wanted to be paired up with the best, and we want to work with people that can give us that opportunity to develop the solution that's right for us. It started with 2 key functionalities. The first one, an improved understanding, improved competence within our own teams. Secondly, what you see in front of you is actually an understanding about risk management, being able to manage it better on site. As a contractor, I think we've recognised today that not all contractors have done it right first time or done it right at all. But we need to make sure we give the opportunity to our teams and our clients to do so. The service we've got with Frankham's allows us to do that. Frankham's are at the end of a phone call, potentially on site, to assist us with problems that we have. Technical advice, ensuring we understand the right thing to do on our jobs with our clients, we use the right materials that are right for us and the overall solutions we need. Bespoke solutions, building reg approval and specifications. Again, we are advertising this service across our business to make sure we're getting this right first time round. What we're doing now is testing it. Rather than just assuming we know what we're doing as a contractor, let's work with Frankham's to come up with the right ideas and the right robust processes to ensure we do pick the right solution each time.
Accountability, competence and traceability are not child's play, like David said. There's a lot of effort, a lot of documentation, a lot of coordination, a lot of management that's got to go on in any organisation, whether you are a housing association or a supplier or a contractor. We've got to develop that culture of it wasn't good enough before, we need to make it better.